So this was when I was in Dublin, in the city center, and I had a companion who was from England, and he just gotten there, so he was pretty new to the area, and I'd only been there for a transfer, so I didn't know the area super well, and we were kind of having a little bit of a hard time finding people to teach. And I remember one day we were getting ready to leave the flat, and he was saying the prayer, and I remember he prayed specifically that we'd be able to teach someone that morning, before we came in for lunch. And so we went out, and I remember we were talking to people and talking around, and we were walking pretty close to our flat, just kind of through this like courtyard area, kind of by these apartments that we lived by. And it was getting pretty close to when we needed to go back back in. And I remember we talked to this guy, and we introduced ourselves and started talking about, I believe it was something about like the purpose of life and stuff like that. And he seemed pretty interested, and we were like, well, do you have a few minutes we could teach you right now? And he said, sure. And at first it kind of caught us both off guard, I think, because it doesn't happen a lot that someone just has time right then. And so we were kind of like, oh, okay. And then we went and sat down on these steps. And I remember we taught him for probably 15 minutes or so. And he took a Book of Mormon, and we got his contact information. We gave him ours, and eventually he left. And for me, I just remember it was just like this really good experience, like faith-building experience, I guess, that if you're doing what you're supposed to and you go out and work, and if you pray for a specific thing, I mean, we could have just prayed that we'd have success, or that we'd find somebody, but my companion prayed that we'd find somebody and be able to teach them that morning, and it happened. I can't say it happened every time that you said a specific prayer, because I mean, if it did, obviously you'd probably just pray that you'd baptize like every other day, and but it was still just a fantastic experience. And I remember I kind of tried to apply that throughout my mission, that specific questions get specific answers, and by praying more specifically, and then obviously going out and actually working toward it like it could happen or would happen, then you would see a lot of great things come from that. So that was one example. I guess another example was when I was in Northern Ireland. I was training a new missionary, and the area I was in didn't have a lot of investigators again, and it was kind of a tough time, especially because I was training, and so I really wanted the new missionary to have people to teach, or opportunities to teach. And so we were going through the area book and going through all like the less actives and former investigators we had, and we came across one that was a former investigator, and she had investigated a couple times before, and I think she'd actually had a baptismal date once. And so we went back and we contacted her, and that was another really good experience, because she had been going through a little bit of a hard time in her personal life. And I just remember my companion, we were teaching her about the plan of salvation, and I was really impressed with him because he taught it fantastically, and he had been out a few weeks or a month maybe, and I just remember being really impressed with that he was able to do that so well. And I still remember like the spirit that was there. We had a senior couple with us too when we were teaching, which was really helpful, because they bring a lot of experience and from life and dealing with their own children and stuff that's always very beneficial. Because a lot of times as 19, 20-year-olds, it's hard to relate to people when they have experiences with stuff you don't know anything about. But senior couples can often shed more light on it and just offer, I guess, more maturity, someone that these other people can maybe look up to because they are older. So I remember that lesson really well, and that was also another really fantastic just teaching experience. Well, this one was really cool. This was also in Dublin. We had been really praying and working hard to find people to teach, and we went to church one morning, and the bishop had a couple with him and was kind of showing them around, and then he saw us and was like, oh, well, here's the missionaries, like they'll take you around and sit with you and talk to you, whatever. And so we went up to him, and we started talking to him, and I was talking to the man, and I remember in the very first conversation, like pretty early on, he was like, "So how long does it take to get baptized into your church?" And he was like, "What?" So that was just amazing to me. And it turned out we started teaching them, but they weren't married, so they had to wait to be baptized, obviously, for a little while. But they were fantastic. They had great questions and were just really on board. They came to church and were really good. And I remember obviously teaching the lesson about why they need to be married before they could be baptized was kind of a nerve-wracking experience or preparation for it, but they actually took it really well. They were really just prepared and willing to do what needed to be done. And I got transferred, but then later they finally got the paperwork that they needed, and they got married and they got baptized, and it was great just to see the pictures, because my companion was still in the area. So it was great to just see pictures and just realize that God had blessed us with that opportunity to meet them and help them along as much as we could. And then the other missionaries took over and did a fantastic job as well. That was a really fantastic experience, just to have somebody come to church looking for the missionaries for that opportunity to be baptized. That was a really fantastic experience as well.